webinar.
Oh,
Your
there we go. It's recording.
Okay, there we go. We got the starter pistol. All right, so hey, welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're formally on right now. My name's Kai, and I have my handsome friend here, Gary Pye from Down Under. Is going to be doing a live demo. He's going to be showing you a whole bunch of stuff. I'll let him explain all the kind of stuff he's going to be doing later on, introduce himself and all that stuff. So how's it going, guys?
Good, matey. I'm very excited about today. This is a good topic. This will be a lot. You're going to get a lot. People will get a lot out of this topic. A lot of little tips and tricks that you just won't find in the manuals and stuff like that. It'll be a good day.
Yeah, this is a brand spanking new webinar. So thanks for being with us, Gary, and taking the time to spread the news about Cartoon Animator and all the new features we got in the latest update. All right, so cool. I wanted to mention a couple of things about the webinar before we get started here. We are recording this, so if you walk away for coffee or to go to the bathroom or whatever, don't worry about missing anything. We'll send you a video, a link after this webinar, and you'll be able to watch it to your heart's content on repeat if you want, whatever later on. We do have a Q&A at the end of today's webinar, so if you have any questions, put your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom, and we will answer those at the end. Now, we're not going to have the chat on during the webinar, just because Gary gets easily distracted by shiny objects and chat pop-ups and stuff like that. And so we're gonna mute the chat for the webinar there, and then but you guys are more than welcome to put any questions, any comments you have in the Q&A, and we'll get to those later on after Gary's demo there. And we are sending out the survey as always, so give us the survey back via email, and we'll send you a 10% discount on the content store. That 10% is stackable with other discounts, which I'm going to talk about right now. The discounts we have on right now for Black Friday. I know the rest of the world, it's not really Black Friday is not really a thing, but here in North America, it's a big deal. I don't know, is it a big deal down in Australia, Black Friday?
It's getting there, yeah. It is getting there.
Okay.
We're getting everywhere at the moment.
Everyone's adopting these American commercial holidays, eh?
Yep, I love it. I love Black Friday when it comes up.
Yeah, got my Amazon notifications on and everything. Anyway, so we have a Black Friday deal as well on right now. So 50% off. You can see on the screen right now in the software store. So like we mentioned earlier before the webinar, we had a little chat for those of you who are on the fence about picking up Cartoon Animator 5. I mean, you can pick it up right now for the price of I don't know, it's kind of an expensive t-shirt, I guess, but maybe a light jacket. Whatever, 74 bucks US right now. So good time to pick it up. Best time of the year, honestly, to pick up Cartoon Animator 5. And you can see it on the screen right now. So just wanted to mention that. There's some other stuff too if you're interested in the other software, but you can go through that on your own time. And then in the content store as well, we have a similar discount. I think it's one item you get 40% off, two items you get 50% off. So make sure you check that out as well. Lots of content to purchase for Cartoon Animator 5, especially for all the new features. And Gary will talk about that later on. Different bundles you can take a look at here. That's in the content store. I'm sure you guys know how to get to the content store. If you don't, just let us know in the Q&A and I'll send you a link. In addition, I wanted to mention that if you are a student, you get a 60% discount for any software. Submit your student ID to this website here. This is our Global Training Center. I'm going to throw this link in the chat for you guys. There it is. Chatteroony, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Check out the Global Training Center. If you are a student, so like I mentioned, just submit your valid student ID, get a 60% discount. That's even better than Black Friday, but you have to be a student, so you're probably already broke. But anyways, and if you're an educator as well, you get the same thing. So if you're faculty or whatever, and if you are purchasing for a classroom, you get even more discount. But that's another thing I wanted to mention. In addition, just a little teaser, I guess, for a webinar we have coming up on December 4th. This one is with Mark Diaz, one of our trainers, and he's going to be basically going through the very basics of Cartoon Animator 5. So if you're starting from scratch, you want to start up a new project, this is how you get started. He goes from the very basics here, and a lot of good ideas and inspiration in this webinar.
And you won't find anybody more inspirational than Mark, I tell you. The guy motivates me more than anybody else.
Yeah, he's like who's that guy? Tony Robbins? You know, remember that guy?
He's just like a shot of espresso first thing in the morning. He just motivates me. He's terrific.
This is espresso right here. uh, I've had a long afternoon, but yeah, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I don't have anything more to say, so maybe I'll just hand it over to you, Gary, and you can go about your. I think you should be able to share your screen, right?
Okay. Yep. What I've got to do, I've just got to quickly set up screen, and I've also got to have computer audio, and I think we're good to go. Let me just test this.
I can see your, yep, there we go.
You good? You can see that? All right. Then I shall take over. You're right if I take over?
Go for it.
Okay. G'day. My name is Gary Pye, and welcome to our webinar called How to Bring Your Cartoon Animator Characters to Life. In this webinar, I'm going to teach you how to use the tools of Cartoon Animator to make your actors act, react, and behave like living, breathing humans. I'm going to teach you the finer art of character animation and facial puppetry using the detail settings and facial puppetry and things like that in order to make your characters act in a believable way. What I've done is to create a short monologue of one of my characters here, Jane Danger, and I'm going to play that video for you. We're going to watch it, and then I'm going to break down exactly how I made this animation step by step and walk you through the entire process. But before I get started, I need to give you my disclaimer. First of all, I never claim that my way is the easiest way, the fastest way, the best way, or the only way to do things with Cartoon Animator. But I do claim that my way works. Second of all, we're going to have plenty of other CTA pros in here today that are going to have their own way of doing things, and that's great. Take what they can teach you, take what I can teach you, take what you can learn on your own, and you'll build yourself a really good, solid knowledge base of how to work with this software. And finally, at the end of this webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session where you'll be able to ask all your own questions, and we'll do that once we finish. Now, finally, I don't claim to know everything there is about Cartoon Animator, okay? I've been working with this software for 10 years, and I still don't know everything. I'm learning all the time. So take what I can teach you today, but if you don't get the answers to your questions, don't panic. There are plenty of different ways that you can get answers to your questions, including the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page, where we have over 5,000 CTA users all across the globe who are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to answer your questions. Then you've got the manuals, the white papers, the forums, the YouTube channel. There's so many different ways you can learn, including courses and both free and paid courses by a lot of our talented developers. So make sure you do that as well. Now, we're going to get started. I don't want to muck around. I want to get started straight away. I'm going to play you this little video of the monologue of Jane Danger that I did. We're going to watch that, and then we're going to start the whole process, and we're going to create this animation. So to begin with, watch this.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
All right, so the first thing that we need to do when I start an animation is lip syncing. The reason that I start lip syncing first is because I like to do it while my character is stationary, while she's standing still. It's going to move the screen. And that way her head's not moving around and turning. We can actually see what we're working with. There's two different ways that you can do lip syncing. There's manual or automatic. I'll show you both. If we select our character and we open the face tab, and we go to the voice clip and we open it up. If we scroll through to the point that we want to add our dialogue, and you can add it as either an MP3 or a WAV file, right click, select import, find your file. Now, when I click this, what's going to happen is Cartoon Animator is going to apply this audio file to my character, and it will automatically lip sync the character for me like this.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions.
Okay, now the first thing you'll notice is the automatic lip syncing has just selected the sprites that it feels best represents the words that are coming out of Jane's mouth, okay? Automatic lip syncing is fine if you've just got a short burst of dialogue, or if your character is off in the distance a little bit like this. When you watch it, the lip syncing is fine, okay? However,
Or scared.
if your character is up close to the screen, you might find that the lip syncing is not quite accurate enough.
Or even angry. It's all up to you.
So what we need to do is to learn manual lip syncing if we want to do it properly, because my theory is characters that are closer to screen deserve to have more attention to detail. Lip syncing manually is easy. You just have to learn. I can teach you how to lip sync. I can tell you how to lip sync. I can show you, but to really learn, you have to do this yourself. And the best way to learn is to grab a character that has a really good range of mouth sprites. Jane Danger's got 55 mouth sprites, which means that you can get really good expressions and emotions out of the character. And then get yourself a short burst of dialogue that's nice and clear, apply it to the character, and just practice and practice until you watch it and you feel like that character is really speaking those words. So I'm just going to move that. I've got this one little pop-up window that's in my way. So let's open up our sprite editor here. And we've got the face tab open. And we need to open up a face motion and open the mouth. And that will give us our mouth timeline tracks. We've got 4 timeline tracks. Don't worry, I'm going to go through today and go into detail and explain what each of these 4 timeline tracks do. What we need to do here, you can see that Jane has all these different mouth sprites. All we need to do is to work out the mouth sprites that we think work best. To begin with, move forward to where Jane starts to speak, about there. Now, all we're going to do is select the sprites that we think work best. Now, I'm not going to lip sync this entire passage or we're going to be here too long. What I'm going to do is to just lip sync the first sentence. Now, the problem here is that doing this is like riding a unicycle on a high wire while I'm juggling, patting my head, rubbing my stomach. It's very confusing to talk to you and do it at the same time. So bear with me. I will do my best. I tend to use about 2 frames in between each of the lip sprites, changing for characters that are just speaking at a normal pace. If a character is talking really fast, I might drop that down to 1. And if a character is talking really slow, I might slow it down a little bit, because you can use the Deform tool to change the shapes of the mouth. Also, you'll find that sometimes when the character speaks, like here when Jane says cartoon, see the sound of the cartoon, the R sound stretches right out. So I'll add a few frames in between, and we can use Deform later on to change how that looks. And the same will apply when we say ooh, when she goes to tune. There we go. Now we need to go find the N. Where is N? Up the top. Cartoon. 55 mouse sprites. I tell you, sometimes it's not easy to find the mouse sprite that you need. There we go. Nearly done. Animator. Animator. Here we go. We need air. There we go. No. Where's N? This part is, you know what? It's tedious learning to do this, but I don't know. I love it. I absolutely love lip syncing, because when you get it right and your character comes to life, man, there's no better feeling. M, I just use smile. Mater, AY. It's only this one passage that we're going to do. Nearly done. Nearly done. All right, all done. Now you'll find that when we play back our character, the lip syncing is going to look a lot better than it did on the manual. Now, that didn't take too long to do. Normally, I would do that faster because I'd only be focusing on that. But watch this through and see the difference.
With Cartoon Animator.
Right. Now, suddenly, Jane's mouth is actually starting to form those sounds, particularly on the sounds like your R and your CH and your TH. It's important to make sure that you get those right. There is something else that we can do here with Jane that I think is pretty cool. At the start, when she starts to speak here, you'll see that we flip from that, right? You sort of flip straight away to the sound. What I like to do is to put in a deform for when she starts to speak. So that when she goes from there to there, right? If we open up our face key editor, bring it down here, and we open up the deform track. On the deform track here for the mouth, if we put in a keyframe there by hitting V on the keyboard, sometimes I refer to it as a V key or a keyframe. That's telling Cartoon Animator that at that point, that's what the mouth is going to look like. Then, as we lead up to here, we're going to go put a V key in there because we don't want any change there. But what I want to do is to have Jane's mouth start to change shape into that first sprite. So it's as if her mouth is getting ready to speak rather than just instantly flipping into it. So in the frame before she starts to speak, we can use the lattice work of the Deform tool to just bend that sprite around a little bit so that it will move into that frame just a little bit better, so that when you play it, you get her mouth to move that little bit before she starts to speak. It's almost as if she's just getting ready to talk, right? And the same thing, when she holds the R sound there, again, I like to try to keep parts of the face, like the mouth, moving all the time. I don't like to keep them still, okay? I like everything to keep moving. With that, we can use the Transform tool. And the first thing we need to do is to reduce the size of Jane's bones, which are absolutely huge. They're about 40. Let's open up our bone tool there. Open up the bone tool. Yeah, 40. Let's reduce those to 15. Go back in. And now we'll have more manageable bones for Jane. So now when we select the character, here we go. And we go back in, open up, that's better. Now with the Transform tool on the Transform track, which is the T track, when we get to the R sound, we can make Jane's lips go up. So she says car, and the lips will move up a little bit. Same thing. Drop in a V key there on the Transform track. That's the position we're going to hold at. Then we can move the lips up just that little bit so that when she moves in, now when she speaks, her lips will go up at that point. You watch. Right? Go up. You can bring them up, and then you can bring them back down again just before. Here we go. Just before she speaks there. Right, so you're keeping the lips moving and stopping them from looking like they're just pasted onto Jane's face. Now, what I've done is every step of this project that I'm going to show you, and there's about 12 steps roughly, but every step of the way that I show you, I've saved all the individual project files. So I'll show you what to do, then we'll open the project file and I'll show you the end results of what it looks like when we're done. So now I'll open up the character here, go to the face tab, open up the mouth, timeline, scroll down, and you can see here, as we scroll along, the amount of work that I went to on Jane's mouth sprites. This track here, S, is where all the sprites are swapping. The T track is where it's transforming or changing position, and the D track is where the mouth is deforming. And again, I'll go over all these tracks later on in a bit more detail. But watch. And this is what Jane's manual lip syncing looks like once I've finished it.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Okay, so that, to me, that's the tedious part out of the way. That's the first part I always try to get done in my animation first. I'd like to also point out at this point that the voice that I used on Jane here is from a website called Replica Studios, which does AI voices. There's plenty of different websites available that do a really good job on that. But don't forget also, on the Cartoon Animator Users Facebook page, we've got a bunch of talented voiceover guys. Don't forget to use them. Throw some business their way as well. All right, moving on to stage 2 of getting Jane to act is to block out her head motion. With G3 characters that are built properly, you get a nice 360 head motion. If we open up our face key editor, hit the morph tab and make sure that we've got our head rotation gizmo activated, which is this little icon here. From the start here, if I can use this now to rotate Jane's head anywhere I want, And because she's got a 360 head, what is actually a two-dimensional character ends up looking like it has a really nice 3D head. And you'll see also that Jane's hair has spring bones built into it, which is a new feature of Cartoon Animator 5. And with spring bones, which you can set up on your own, or you might buy a character that already has them built into the character like this. With spring bones, it's all automated movement so that as Jane moves her head, CTA will take care of the movement of her hair. So you don't have to go back and keyframe all that like we had to do in previous versions of Cartoon Animator. Now it takes all the heavy lifting out of it. So the way it works is if we open up the timeline here on the face tab, if we open up the facial clip, we're presented with 3 timelines: the head, the face, and the eye. And today we're going to go through and learn what each of them does. Right now, we're worried about the head timeline. The head timeline is responsible solely for the rotation of the 360 head. That's all it does. If I move to here, when I rotate the head in any position, a keyframe is going to turn up on the head timeline track, telling us that during those 10 frames, from that position to that position, Cartoon Animator will fill in all the in-between frames so that Jane's head will rotate like that. So you don't have to draw all the frames individually, which is a huge time saver. So what we want to do here is to block out Jane's head movement. Now she starts to talk about here. So I would put my keyframe in. Now, interestingly, in the first 20 frames, nothing happens. We lead into the animation, nothing happens. I would like to see Jane keep moving so that you never want this character to look like she's a wooden cutout just frozen on screen. Now, there's different ways you can do this. Cartoon Animator comes with pre-made motions, professional, smooth motions that you can just drag and drop onto your characters. The software itself comes with a lot of motions, and there are hundreds and hundreds of motions that you can buy in the content store and the marketplace that have your character doing everything. It's fast, it's easy. I use them myself. But the purpose of today is to show you how to keyframe all your motions. So we're not going to do that. We're going to do it ourselves. Generally, what I would do here, we want to try to create like an idle motion for Jane. Okay, so it's as if she's just waiting for the director to say action and then she moves. So what I would do is to just maybe every 5th frame, just gently, not too hard, just have Jane's head moving around a little bit like this, right? So that she looks like she's getting ready to move. Then as Jane moves, I tend to use the 360 head for inflections in particular, so that when she's talking, if she goes, oh, with Cartoon Animator, the head will move around. Keep her head moving. Don't just have her staring at the screen like that. A great way of learning how to do character animation is to sit down, get your speech, practice it in front of the mirror, or record yourself doing it, play it back, act out the performance, and see where you move your eyes, your eyebrows, your gesturing, your head movement, and then put that into the performance of your character. So as Jane says, Cartoon Animator here, I would get ready to sort of just take the head up a little bit, right? Wait for it, bring it back down, just a nice little nod, tune. Now, when she says animator, the inflection, she sort of goes back, maybe back a little bit. And then don't forget, you don't have to just go backwards and forwards as you're talking, move side to side as well. And then bring it back to the start there. Now, here's a good tip. When you're doing your animation, constantly keep scrubbing through it, because one of the great things about Cartoon Animator is that you can make changes even after you've animated. Unlike traditional animation, hand-drawn cell animation, if you've just finished 3,000 frames of animation, it's difficult to go back and suddenly go, oh, I'd like her arm moving in this position instead. But with Cartoon Animator, you can go back and you can make changes even after you've animated, which is great. So let's say, for instance, we play this animation now.
With Cartoon Animator.
Right, so now she's bobbing along as she talks. Another tip, you can change the pacing of your animation by moving the position of your keyframes. The more space between your keyframes, the slower a motion will take place. The less keyframes that are in between, the faster it will take place. So if we take this keyframe and move it out to here, then this action here is going to slow right down like this. Okay. However, on the final keyframe, you can't grab that one and drag it out to here. What you need to do first is to create a keyframe here by pushing V on the key on your keyboard. Then you can grab this keyframe and bring it along to there. But your bounding box is where your motion is restricted until you add a keyframe to the end. Okay, let's open up the head movement project and take a look at that. We'll play it right through, and then we'll move on to the next stage. Open up my character, select Jane, face clip, and now you see all the keyframes that are on the head timeline track that I've put in. So we'll watch the animation through, and then we'll move on.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Okay, something I want to point out at this point is don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Don't feel like in the first 10 frames, if Jane's looking over here, that you have to do the eye rotation and the blinking and the head rotation and everything. You can do it all in stages. Build your animation up in layers. You don't have to do it all at once. The next thing that I want to add in is eye movement. Okay, again, we don't want Jane to just have her eyes looking dead and moving around, staring at the one spot as her head moves around. We want to bring the character to life by making the eyes move. Generally, what I do, we're going to work here on, to start with, under the facial clip. So this is under the face tab, facial clip, eyes. Like the head timeline track is responsible only for the rotation of the head, the eye timeline track is responsible only for the movement of the iris, for the little colored circle in the middle of our eye. That is its sole responsibility. If we open up the face key editor and we have the morph tab open, then we select the eyes. Any part you select on the face here, you can move around, but for now, we're just going to work with the eyes. If I will close off the gizmo because we don't need that now. If I move to the outside of my puppet head here and hold down my left key on my mouse button, when I move the eyes around, when I move the mouse around, the eyes are going to rotate around with Jane. So all we need to do to start with is to make sure Jane is looking at us, because it's important that Jane's eyes focus on what she's looking at, whether it's the camera or an object or whatever. You need to believe that that's where she's looking. Generally, what I'll do now is to move forward and match up roughly with the head timeline tracks, the keyframes, so that each time Jane moves her head, her eyes will adjust slightly. And I mean slightly. The key here is subtle. You don't want her eyes bouncing all around her head. You just want to keep it subtle. So as she moves her head each time, I will just go in and move the eyes ever so slightly so that it appears that she's just trying to just keep looking at that camera. And even though her head's moving, she's moving her eyes around to make sure that she maintains focus. And even in a space like that where the head's not moving, I'll still move the eyes just a little bit. We're only talking about a couple of pixels here. It's not a large movement. It's just a little bit. Okay. So again, I'm not going to do the whole animation. I'm just going to show you what I do. Then we'll play the finished product. So now that we've got our eye movements in and we play that,
With Cartoon Animator,
right, you can see there's just that subtle little bit of motion in there with the eyes that just makes them believe that they're rolling around inside her head and not just sitting there glued to her face. We'll open up the eye movement track. We'll open up the timeline at the bottom so you can see what I've done. Select Jane, open up the timeline, face clip. Now you can see we've got the head and the eye with all the timeline keyframes in there. We'll play the animation through. Now, before I play the animation, I just want to say something. If you're going to do animation, you're going to see the same animation over and over and over again, and you're going to hear the same audio track over and over and over again. You're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to drive the people around you crazy. But that's part of animating. And the reason that it's a good thing is because when you've watched it 100 times, Every time you watch it, something's going to stand out where you go, that's not quite right. Get in there, make the change. This is your chance to go in and go, yeah, that eye's not sitting quite right. Go in and make the changes based on all the tools that I show you today, because that is the difference between good and great, okay? Don't look at your animation and go, yeah, it's good enough. That's the point where you should look at it and go, right, now, how do we get it to be right? So let's play this animation through, see where we're up to.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Okay, so now we've got our lip syncing in, we've got our head rotation, and we've got our eye movement. The next thing I want to do is blinking. Now, I feel like blinking is the point in bringing a character to life where all of a sudden they become real. Once I put in blinking, I feel like they become real. Now, there's two different ways you can do blinking. You can use face detail settings to make the eye close down slowly and open back up. That's fine. But for my purposes, I just use sprite swapping. I think it works great on almost any character. So that's what I'm going to show you today. If you open up your sprite editor, open up the face tab, you've got your eyes here, or on the face motion track, you can select the eyes here, and you're presented with your timeline tracks for the eyes. All we need to do is to work out when Jane's going to blink and put the blinks in. The key here is don't make your blinks robotic. You don't want to put the blinks in at even spaces throughout your timeline, because that's not how we blink. You want to find the rhythm of the blinking. A good way of practicing in front of the mirror, you want to find out when are the times that we blink. To begin with, I'll show you how to make the blink, and then I'll show you when I would use it. So let's just move forward to about here. Again, we can change when she blinks later on. You can move your keyframes. And all we need to do is hit eye closed on both eyes. Jane's eyes close, and we're given the sprite indicator here of the little keyframe on the timeline track. And generally for blinking, 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. If a character is just speaking at a normal pace, I'll just use 4 frames of blinking. If a character is talking really fast, I might drop that down to 3, or if she's reacting in surprise, or if a character happens to look away and look back, like if I'm going to look over there, when I do it and look back, I'll use 6 frames of blinking. Now, the key here is to know when you blink. And I've got 3 really good tips that I can give you of when we blink. Number 1 is when we change position. So if I'm looking at you here and I change and I'm going to look over there, as I do it, I tend to blink and I look back again. Whenever I shift focus and I look at a different object, I tend to blink as I do it to focus my eyes. The second thing is, if you're in a conversation with somebody, you tend to blink when you pause. Also, I got to tell you, when I do this part of the webinar, all I'm focusing on is my blinking. I'm so aware of my blinking, it drives me crazy. But yeah, so when you pause, blinking is a handy point. Or if a character's thinking or stammering, blinking sort of resets the brain so that you know what you're doing. The third way that I use blinking has less to do about human reaction and more about animating. And that is, if something is happening on screen where you're doing a sprite swap elsewhere on screen, throw in a blink to distract your audience's attention. For instance, if Jane walks onto screen and as she stops, her foot placement sprite goes from side to forward, and your only choice is to do a sprite swap from side to forward, you're going to get that little flick on the screen there, which is distracting and can take your audience's attention down to that. If at that same time you put in a blink, then you're dividing your audience's attention between those two things and not making that other sprite swap quite as obvious. So that's another point where I'll put in a blink. What you can do here is to hold down your left mouse button, drag around the 4 keyframes of your blink, right click and copy, and now we've copied our blink to the clipboard. So all we need to do is to work out, based on what I've told you, when we'd add in our blinks. So I'll play the animation, figure out when we're going to throw in the blinks.
With Cartoon Animator,
See, when she pauses there, I would put in a blink.
You can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions.
Pause, put in a blink.
From happy
When she changes direction and looks a different direction,
to sad
same thing,
or scared
same thing.
or even angry.
And then now she's going to change focus to finish up. She's going from that expression to a new one.
It's all up to you.
And then finally, a blink at the end, just before she finishes her monologue. I'll play this through, then I'll open up the other project. Here we go.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Look, you can already see that Jane is starting to come to life now, okay? Now, at this point, a lot of people will just, that's where they'll leave it. That's where they'll leave the animation. There's nothing wrong with what we've done there. It looks okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But the point here today is, can we do better? And yes, we can absolutely do better. And the way we can do better is with a thing called detail face settings. And this is when we start to get under the bonnet of the car and really start to tinker around with Jane's character. You can get in and control every single conceivable part of Jane's face here. If we open up our timelines, we select the character, hit face. This time around, we want to open up our face key editor, and we have different buttons and panels here that we're going to play with, including transform, deform, and the detail settings. Now, we can use all of these tools to manually control the shape and deformation and position of all of Jane's face parts. At the start of the animation, Jane's just talking normally. To be perfectly honest, there's not that much that I would want to change. But once we hit about frame 195, Jane gets a little bit more expressive when she says, okay, at this point, we might want to start making her face just a little bit more expressive. So let's go back to frame 195 and open up our facial clip, because this time around, we're going to work on the face timeline. We've worked on the head timeline, rotation. We've worked on the eye timeline, rotation of the eyes. Now we're going to work on the face timeline track, which is responsible for the transformation and the deformation of all of Jane's face parts, like her eyebrows, her nose, her mouth, things like that. You can change the shape and position of all of those using the face key editor. So at frame 195, I'm going to hit V on my keyboard to put in a keyframe to tell Cartoon Animator I don't want any changes from frame 0 to frame 195. However, when Jane says happy, I want her eyes to sort of open up, become much more expressive. We can do that using the detail face settings. When I open that up, we're presented with this panel here, which has 4 separate tabs for brow, eye, nose, and mouth. And these little sliders which control the deformation of these different parts. For instance, you'll see at the start here that Jane's eyes are already slightly squinted. The reason that I do that is because I like to start with the eyes a little bit closed to give myself some wiggle room so that when she says happy, she can open up her eyes a little bit wider. So at this point, we want Jane, when she says happy, to make her eyes go wider. We can make them go back to the original position like that. Then we can even make them go wider again, but the problem is, of course, they drop too far down on her face. It doesn't look natural, but we can use the cheek raise to bring them back up into position like that. And then we can have the eyes go as wide as we want so that we can really get some expression out of her. So now Jane will go, right, so her eyes will go up. Hold them in position by putting a V key on the keyboard, keyframe, I always call it V key. Then bring them back to where they were. In order to bring them back to where they were, it's important to do that, because the simple fact is what goes up must come down, right? Anything that you move out of position at some point during your animation, bring it back to its original position, because if you don't, you're going to end a 3,000 frame animation and your character is going to look like a Picasso and its mouth is going to be in the middle of its forehead and everything's going to be out of whack. So to go back to our original position, what I would do is to copy that keyframe there, right click, copy, move forward, and paste it at that point. So now her eyes will open and then come back down to normal like this. Right? Now, the pace that you do that at just depends how far apart your keyframes are. You can just bring them back in to have it happen a little bit faster. Much better. Now, with SAD, I wouldn't use the face key detail settings to try to create SAD. Instead, we're going to use the face key editor and the deform tool, which means we can close up our facial clip and we need to select the left eye and the right eye. And when we do, it's going to present us with all of the timeline tracks for those two objects. We're going to work on the D track, which is the deform track. That allows us to change the actual shape of individual parts. So at the point that we want it to happen, so when she's about to say sad, we're going to put in our keyframe there, drop in our keyframe there, because we're telling Cartoon Animator, this is the point where we want the action to start. So we're going to go, right, so as she says to sad, we can grab our lattice work here and we can drag it around in position to be wherever we want. And what we're doing is we're sculpting the eyes to be the shape that we want to make her eyes look sad. Right? You can go into as much detail as you want here, but essentially between these two keyframes now, with deformation, you can see the lattice work change. It's going to go into that shape. So therefore, she'll say, okay, and then when you want to go back to normal, you can put in a V key there and there to hold that position. But then just before she says the next expression, if you hit reset sprite, select the other one, hit reset sprite, her eyes will return back to normal, ready to go to the next shape. Let's open up the finished project of the eye shapes and we'll play it through and have a look at it. Here we go. This time, I'll just play the animation, pay particular attention to the shape of Jane's eyes.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Right, Jane is starting to look more expressive. Her face doesn't look like a cardboard cutout that's just layer upon layer. She's starting to really look like she's more of a 3D character. At this point, I want to go back to frame 1, and I want to just quickly show you those 4 timelines, go into detail to explain what they are for those of you who don't know. If we open up, let's do Jane's mouth. If we open up Jane's mouth, we are presented with 4 timeline tracks, T, S, D, and O. First of all, the T track is your transform track. If you open the face key editor, here's your transform track. If I select Jane's mouth here, where is it? Mouth. If I move through to frame 9 here, and I change the position of Jane's mouth to be there, we're changing the position on the screen where that sprite will sit at this keyframe. So that means it's dropped the keyframe in there. So from frame 0 to frame 9, that sprite is going to travel to that position. And Cartoon Animator will automatically fill in all the in-betweens so you don't have to sit there and manually draw them. So good. So that's how your transform track works. The sprite track, we pretty much already know. If we move forward and we open up the sprite editor, here's all your different mouths that you've got to choose from. And if I select that mouth, we'll get a little keyframe there on the sprite track that will tell us that that sprite, it's going to hold that sprite there until we get a new keyframe, which changes the sprite. So that's your sprite track. The deform track, we just covered, but I'll do it again for you. On the face key editor, we've got the deform track, which gives you your lattice work around the mouth. You've got different numbers of the lattice that you can work with, depending on how you want to change it. When I make a change to the shape of Jane's mouth, same thing, I'll get a keyframe here. What happens? We go from frame 0 to frame 9, and during that time, Jane's mouth will deform like that. And I tell you, with the deform key is my best friend, because with the deform key, you can always make sure that every part that you want is the shape you want in the position that you want. So make deform your best friend. It's the best track you've got. Finally, the opacity track is the O track. If we open up our sprite editor, if we move forward to frame 9, this area here, opacity, if at the moment it's at 100, if I drop it to 0, that sprite will disappear, and over those 9 frames, it will slowly disappear like that. So that's all there is to those 4 tracks. Now, moving on. As well as being able to deform all the individual face parts of Jane, as I showed you, you can also deform the actual shape of her face, which is really handy for 2 things. One, if your character happens to look around the room and as it changes shape, it's not quite the shape you want, then you can use the Deform tool to bend and change out a jaw to make a better shape. But second of all, where it's really helpful is you can use this tool to get your jaw moving on your character so that as her mouth moves, you can have the jaw move with it. How much detail you want to go into here is entirely up to you. So if we open up our face key editor, have the Deform tab selected, and we have the mouth selected, we're going to work on the Deform track. I'm going to show you how to do it subtly, and then I'm going to show you how I would use it a little bit more. To begin with, subtly. As Jane says, Cartoon Animator, you'll see here as she goes from that sprite to that sprite, her mouth drops down, therefore, realistically, her jaw would drop down as well. So what we can do is to go here and add a keyframe at that point, and then grab the lattice work here. Oh, that's the mouth. I grabbed the mouth accidentally. We're actually doing the face. So what we need to do is to select the face, which is going to give us our 4 timeline tracks for the face. We want the overall face, not the mouth. So as we move forward to frame 9, oh, sorry, when she says that, there we go. When she says Cartoon Animator, here we go. At the point where her mouth would drop down on the face track for the Deform track, hit your keyframe, move forward, and I would just take her jaw and take it down just a little bit. Okay. And then you can bring it back up, reset the sprite, and you'll just get that nice little bounce in her jaw. Like that. How long it takes is up to you. You can spread that out a little bit. Even 1 frame will make quite a difference. There we go. And when she says animator, like that, same thing. We can take it down, drop it down a little bit, make her jaw just a little bit wider, and then have it come back up. And because her lips go so high, we can even have it move up a little bit. So now she'll go, right, so you start to get that jaw moving. It's very subtle, but it adds to the performance of the character. Where we really need to make a difference is when we move through to frame 195. I'm going to put a keyframe there because as Jane says, happy, right? As she says from happy, you might want to reset the jaw down to there, right? But where you're really going to notice it is when she goes into sad, we can use this to change Jane's face because you'll see when she goes into sad, her face tends to taper a little bit too much, but we can use the Deform tool on the face to fatten her cheeks back out and make her back to where she normally is. So if we put our keyframe there, when she goes into sad, we can just grab our lattice work and just pat out Jane's cheeks just a little bit. You don't want to do it too much, but we get back to what her face looks like normally. So we go, and then before she's going to pop back up, there, move forward, reset your sprite, and there we go. Right, so we're deforming the jaw. What I want to do now is to open the project that I have for Deform the Jaw, and we're going to have a look at that. This time around, when I play the animation, what I want you to do is to just have a look at the shape of Jane's jaw. Pay particular attention to here. Here we go.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Right, so it's just adding a little bit more. How much more you want to add is entirely up to you. You can stop at any point and go, yep, I'm happy with that. That's enough. But I want to show you how you can get the most out of it if you really want to spend the time on it. Now, The next thing that I add in is the movement of the eyebrows. Now, I treat eyebrows like highlighting text in a book or using bold or italics in typeface. I find that eyebrows are a great way of highlighting inflections in your speech, so that when you speak, as you go up, as your voice goes up, your eyebrows go up with you, along with other parts that we'll cover, but I find that the eyebrows go up as well. Now, there's two ways you can work with the eyebrows. You can use the detailed face settings with the transform sliders to move them up and down. I prefer to work with, here we go, select Jane. I prefer to work with the face key editor and the transform tab. And the reason for that is because that way I get my numerical values of the X and Y where I can move them precisely. If we select the left brow and the right brow, we're presented with our little timelines again. And we want to work with the T track, which is transform. Let's go back to the beginning. Now, what we're looking for are the points in Jane's speech where the eyebrows might move up a little bit. Here we go. Right. First thing I would do is when she says Cartoon Animator, the voice goes Cartoon Animator. It's like watching a wave, right? Here we go. So when she says here, when she says Cartoon Animator, I would put in my keyframe. So they're going to hold position there. At that point, I would take them up only just a little bit, maybe 0.3. Take both eyebrows up, maybe 0.3. Oops, I did the Z-axis. It was silly. Now, the left eyebrow, take it up 0.3. There we go. Now, as they go up, don't forget, what goes up must come down. Copy those. Copy. Bring it back down. So now they'll just get that nice little inflection on cartoon like this. Okay, how fast it happens, again, you can move your keyframes around, spread it out, maybe one more keyframe to just make it that tiny little bit slower. There we go. Now, when she says animator, the higher the voice goes, the higher the eyebrows go. So here we go. Okay, so at this point, this time around, I would go up a full point on both eyebrows. I would hold, because then she's going to come animator. As she comes back down, we're going to go back down to our original position. So now we get this. There we go. And you're starting to inflect. Now what we need to do is to move along to frame 195, where the action starts, where the character becomes a little bit more expressive. I would put in my keyframe here and here, because Jane is about to say. Now, when she says happy, I would go up 2 points, and that's going to raise up the eyebrows nice. Lever them up, and then I would leave them up until she's about to bring them back down again. And then as she brings them down, reset the sprite, or copy and actually just copy and paste it back in. Be easier. Copy and paste your eyebrow sprites back in here. Where are we? Here we go. Transform. Pop that one into there. To hold. Now we want these first two. Copy those. So she's going to hold up and then come back down. So now she'll say, right. Now when she says sad, we need to rotate the eyebrows to get a sad position so that they look sad and they tilt down. Transform, put in your keyframe. Transform, put in your keyframe. Now when she says sad, we're going to rotate our eyebrow, and we're going to change its position. Rotate the eyebrow, change its position. That's where it's going to sit. Let's have a look. Right. Hold the position until she comes back up. There we go. There we go. And then you just do scared and angry by doing exactly the same thing. The reason I want to open up the project for this at this point is because I want you to have a look at the timeline with the keyframes for the transform and deform for the eyebrows. Let's open up Jane's face key editor, and the face will go to the left brow and the right brow. We'll open up our tracks. Now you can see, once we go through to frame 195, you can see here, wait for it, Now, when she says sad, see how the eyebrows also extend? I've used the deform here on the track. I've used deform between here and here to change the shape of the eyebrows so that they actually move up a little bit, like that. Okay, and the same on angry. With angry, you can see with the deform, if I have the lattice around it, as she says angry, there's the original shape of the eyebrow, but we've used the lattice work to change the shape of the eyebrow to be whatever shape we want. So that's what you can do with transform and deform with the eyebrows. So now that we've got, I'm just going to open that project again so that we are right and we know what we're doing. Now, when Jane says to angry, I like the idea of Jane just leaning into screen a little bit as she says angry. Okay, we can fake this movement. We don't always have to have the character just move side to side. We can fake this movement by opening up the transform track and the face and go through to 195. Now, when Jane says angry, let's watch.
Or scared, or even.
Now, when she's about to say angry, if we go to the face transform track and put in a keyframe, as she goes to angry, if you make her face just a little bit bigger and drop it down, then when she stops, hold that position, then go back to here to reset. Now you'll find that it looks like she leans into screen like this. It's all about faking it. Just work with the tools that you've got to make it work for you. Now, in Cartoon Animator 5, we've just had a new tool introduced called freeform deformation. Like I showed you that you can deform the individual parts of your character's face, so too now you can use freeform deform to squash and stretch your entire character, to give it that sort of anticipation and reaction, to make it look a lot more spongy and squishy rather than just being a cardboard cutout. If we open up our freeform deformation editor, we're presented with this panel here, which has all different presets of deformation for the character. You can use this in a subtle way for, again, inflections and movement that will stop your character looking robotic. On your freeform deformation layer, you'll find, as Jane says, when she says Cartoon Animator, I would put in a keyframe there so that as she goes up on Cartoon Animator, you can grab some of that lattice, just take her up a little bit, then reset, and you'll just get this nice little bounce in her when she says, okay, now you can add in slight inflection there. You don't really need it that much if a character's just talking normally. Where you will find it handy is once we get to frame 195 and she gets more expressive, this is where we're going to use it more. So I'm going to actually grab all of these 6 lattice points in the middle so that as Jane says, happy, I can rotate her a little bit. I can have her go back like that, hold position, and come back. And now Jane will look a little bit more flexible when she says, right, see, everything's moving a little bit more. The body's not staying as stiff. Same with sad. When we do it, when we do sad, we can go in, rotate it, bring it down, hold position. So we're ready to move on, go back, reset, and then now when she says scared, we can be a little bit more exaggerated. We can bring her up like that. Again, use my theory of what goes up must come down, anticipation, reaction. When she gets to the top, I like to have a little bounce in sudden movements. Rather than have them move and just stop, I like to have a little sudden bounce. So what I would do is move forward about 3 frames, just bring the character down just that tiny little bit. And now she'll go through and say,
Or scared.
Right? So when she says scared, she gets that bounce. You can make it more dramatic by bringing these frames closer together.
Or scared.
There we go. So she gets that little jump in there. That's another thing that you can do there. Let's watch the full freeform deformation project. And then we'll move on to the last part of our webinar. We're doing well. So pay attention now to the way Jane flexes and moves.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Right, so now Jane's moving at a lot more realistic way. But I'm a firm believer, if whatever's on screen, pay attention to it, make sure it keeps moving, particularly when an actor's moving. What else we can do here is Jane's arms. I would be moving her arms a little bit so that when she's talking, she's using the shoulders to shrug. Open up your timeline. This time we want to open up motion, keyframe editor, and select the pivot points on Jane's arms, because that's what we're going to transform and move. We're using the transform key. All we want to do here is keep Jane moving. Remember, in the first 10 frames of the animation, we had it as if Jane was waiting for the director to say action. She's going to turn the camera. Like her head turns to camera there, we can help fake that little body turn if we drop this arm and take this arm and bring it up a little bit. If you watch it, now you get a nice little fake body turn from Jane. It's if she's turning to camera, right?
Cartoon Animator.
And then from there, it's a matter of just putting in your inflection. I use shoulders like eyebrows and head bob so that they all go up together roughly around the same time. So you'll go, there we go. So when she says, where's the arm? Here's the arm, transform, transform. So I would just take the arm up a little bit, take the arm up a little bit, again, reset. Now, an interesting point here is that you've got two options for keyframing. You've got full body or selected part. As you can see at the moment, I'm on full body. If I'm on full body and I hit keyframe, Cartoon Animator is going to put a keyframe on every single body part in the structure. But if I select selected part, it's only going to put a keyframe on the timeline of the part that we're working with. So if we're working with the arm, it's only going to put a keyframe on that arm. In a case where you're only making minor movements to one part, use this, or you're going to end up with keyframes absolutely everywhere. So now you get this nice little shrug as she speaks. Okay, as she says animator, we can just do the same thing, but this time around, maybe just rotate the arm out that little bit, bring it out. Same here. It's all about subtle, nuanced movements. That's what we're trying to do. Reset it and reset the other one. Right, so now she'll go.
With Cartoon Animator.
Right, so we're trying to put that in there. Let's open up that project for body motion, and I will show you the full body motion with all of her shoulders. You know what to do now, but I'll just show you. Pay attention to Jane's shoulders.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
There we go. So Jane's really starting to come to life now. She does not look like a cardboard cutout. She's starting to look much more dynamic and fluid. Two things to go. We still haven't touched on one part, and that's the neck. The neck is another thing that will constantly move while you're talking. So let's go back to the beginning and we'll do the neck. And this is what you got to do all day. Keep going back, do another bit. I love it. I love going back and just adding more and more to the animation all the time. So we go to the motion. We're going to open up our keyframe editor. If you can't find the part that you're looking on, like if you've got a character that's got heaps of little pivot points here and you can't find it, go to your hierarchy view and you'll find it on the list here. All you got to do is select the neck. Then it's going to give you your tracks that you can work with. In this case, the transform track. Right? As Jane leans to camera, we can use the neck, move the neck up a little bit like that, so we get that fake body turn to camera. So she'll look like this. Right? Oh, that looks much better. When she turns to camera now, when she starts, instead of just having her standing there static before she begins, now she's got this nice little turn to camera. Same with the neck, inflections, eyebrows, head bob, shoulders, neck. Here we go. So as she says, Cartoon Animator, and it doesn't have to match up perfectly in line with your, oh, that's the hip. It doesn't have to match up perfectly in line with your other parts. But as she says, cartoon, I'd do that. And as she says, animator, maybe just rotate the neck a little bit, bring it up, take it back, bring it back, so that you just get this nice little head bob like this.
With Cartoon Animator.
Oh, now, see how the head goes side to side like that? We don't want that. That doesn't look good. I don't like that. That's where being able to move your keyframes really comes in handy. Cartoon Animator makes it very easy for you to get your timing right on your animation. All you have to do is to grab that keyframe, or both of these in this case, and make this gap here larger. And now her head bob from side to side will be a little bit more smooth. Watch this. Okay, even this one. Here we go. That's better. Little bit smoother. It was too jittery before. If we open up the neck project, then we only have one more thing to go. Watch the overall animation now. All our character animation now is done. We've started with a flat character. We've finished off with a character that moves in a nice, realistic, dynamic way. Watch this. This is what we've done to the character so far.
With Cartoon Animator, you can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions, from happy to sad or scared or even angry. It's all up to you.
Now, to finish off our animation, Cartoon Animator gives you the opportunity to add backgrounds to your animation. You can do that with a PSD file that's all fully loaded, that you can set up all your Z-axis values for every layer in your animation so that you can get a nice parallax, camera angles. You can push into your scene. If you want to learn how to do that, happy to show you in the Q&A, but that's not what we're covering in the webinar. So for the sake of this particular animation, all I did was to drop in a single JPEG that I put into Photoshop, hit it with a blur filter, and put it into the animation. You watch. Then what I did was I've used the camera as movement as well in my scene, because it's important that you realize that the camera is just as effective as any actor in your scene. Always work with the camera, keep it moving, particularly if you've got a monologue or a long piece of action. Don't hold the camera static in one shot for ages. You'll bore the heck out of your audience and they're going to leave. Keep them engaged by making their eyes keep focusing on different things. If we open up the camera, I'll show you, I'll play this clip, but I will walk you through the different camera motions, because what I've got here is Jane and a simple background. And if we go up the top here to our 3D view, you'll see that Jane is on -0.9 on the Z-axis value, and the background is on -1000, meaning it's way off in the distance behind her. We can use these three tools to control our camera. We've got the zoom, pan, and rotate. So we've got zoom, pan, and rotate. And what happens is each of these tools that you use will stay with the depth of the camera, and they're going to make your animation a lot more interesting to look at. Let's just focus on the camera for now. I'm going to play the animation and I'll talk you through what I did. In the beginning here, I just do a nice slow push in on the background if you watch it.
You can animate a wide range of emotions and expressions.
Okay, then at this point, we do more of a handheld sort of shot as we do the next part so that we can follow Jane's head.
From happy to sad
Right, then I go into a more dramatic turn of the camera
or scared
for scared, and then finally with angry,
or even angry.
we do a nice little Hollywood push in where we push into her, push the camera back. Don't forget also, one last tip, on all of your camera motions, if you right click it and hit transition curve, you're presented with the transition curve menu where you can experiment with all different motions for your camera. I like to use smooth. That's the one that I prefer. So there you have it. That is how I took Jane from being a flat two-dimensional character into a character that looks and acts and sounds like she's actually speaking those words. I'm going to hand over to Kai now, and we'll get into the Q&A section of the webinar. But just let me wrap up by saying the key here is practice. Practice makes perfect is an expression for a reason. The only way you get better at this is to keep practicing. Grab yourself a well-rigged character, a short burst of dialogue, and keep animating until it looks like the character is speaking those words. Keep at it, and Cartoon Animator gives you all the tools you need to be able to produce quality animation. Thank you for watching. Kai, I'm going to hand over to you. Let's do some Q&A.
All right, I'm back. Can you see me? I can't see myself.
See
oh, okay, I just good. I have a view where I can't see myself. Okay, there we are. Cool. All right. Thanks so much for that, Gary. That was awesome. I think I honestly got to say to everyone attending here, you will not get a more comprehensive facial animation webinar / tutorial for all of our Cartoon Animator 5 stuff that we have out, all the learning stuff. Gary pretty much covered almost every single base. I can't think of anything else to really add to that, to be honest. I'm going through all the different tools, all the different, animation methodologies. A really comprehensive and perfect tutorial. Like, this is a really good one. You'll probably be coming back to this quite often, I think, everyone here. So
this is one of those tutorials that it's more designed to people that are a little bit more competent with Cartoon Animator. This is not the basics, but it still gets to show you what you've got to look forward to when you learn the basics of it.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Well, let's get into the Q&A then.
All right.
I know it's your favorite part of the webinar, you said, right?
I do. I do. I love the Q&A. How do I bring up the Q&A?
Just click on the Q&A in the panel there, the Zoom panel. Thanks, Gary. Now someone says, now go put some pants on.
Yeah, that's rare for me to be wearing pants of a day, I can tell you. I live in my boxer shorts. Okay. You want to
well, let's get started. Yeah, let's get started with one. There's one from DRM. Thanks for everything, says. I'm struggling with properly naming the layers in Illustrator for SVG files.
Okay.
That would be kind of.
Can I jump in on that one?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, it's all you.
Okay. Deform, the easiest thing to do there is to go to the previous webinar that I did, which was called How to Rig a G3 Actor for Cartoon Animator 5. If you go to the YouTube tutorial on that and have a look, it's got a 1-hour webinar that takes you through all that. Plus, there's a free written tutorial that I wrote that takes you through step by step, shows you everything. If you get stuck with it, send me an email, jump on the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page, because that's a webinar that we've already covered. There's no point doing that here. It's actually all the information you need is there. Read through it. If you get stuck, you give me a yell. I can help you with that easy.
Yeah, like Gary mentioned, lots of learning resources for that, the workflow you mentioned. So we'll
that's not something.
It's kind of a totally different topic.
I can't cover that here in 2 minutes, but the information is out there and I can point you to it. Awesome.
All right, Nehemiah, that's a cool name. Can a drawing tablet be used to control the slider function within the software? Yeah, I mean, if you're using a drawing tablet, you can use it just like a mouse to work the OS. I don't see why not. I've used that for 3D software in the past, so iClone or 3D software.
I've got both. I only use my drawing tablet for drawing. I do all my animating with a mouse. I don't use the tablet at all for animating. As a matter of fact, I bought myself a Surface Pro thinking, oh, while I'm sitting down watching TV at night, I can do some animation. I like the mouse. Yeah,
some people are really good with the stylus, but not myself. So I do like I'm like you. I do a lot of
more. I still draw with a mouse. I still draw with the mouse as well. Like I just created a new series of characters. The whole thing was drawn with Bezier curves and a mouse. I'm just comfortable with a mouse.
Yeah, absolutely. We're old school.
Exactly. Well, you're absolutely right. Because when I started drawing characters, we didn't have graphic tablets. All I had was a mouse.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you used to have to take the little mouse ball out and give it a little clean and stuff. Yeah, back in the day.
Yep.
Question from Heather. Anyways, can you make animal characters? Yeah, absolutely. You can make animal characters. We have a couple of animal character templates. I don't know, Gary, you've done a few animal characters, haven't you?
Yep, we've got animal templates. There's mostly they're things like horse, dog, and cat, and they are really, really good. The template characters, and there's motions for them, and they are superb. And at the moment, I'm on a little bit of a campaign to try and get Reillusion to release a new pack where we get things like two-legged characters like dinosaurs and stuff like that, like a raptor sort of motion. I think there's room for more motions. I wish we had more developers making quality motions. Plus, yes, you can make your own characters and you can make your own motions for them. So the answer is yes.
Yep, and you can purchase motions and whatever on either the marketplace or the content store. Both are good. Question from Nehemiah again. Can we mirror any part of the eye so that one eye will control the other eye at the same time?
Well, that's an interesting question. When you're working with, let me just show you something. If I select, sorry, I just got to move my little picture area. If I select Jane there and I open up my face key editor and the morph tab, like I said here, you can control your eyes, right? So if I hold down my left mouse button and move it around, Jane's eyes will move. But I can do that individually as well. So if I want to, I can have those eyes just move individually, or I can have them move at the same time. And when you're setting up your head in composer mode, when you're first setting up your head, you can set up one eye, then hit a button to mirror that shape, and it will automatically transfer to the other eye, so you don't have to do them individually. So your answer is yes.
Perfect. Yeah, good answer. All right. Question from Aaron. Is there a way to add forces / effectors such as gravity, wind, or noise to modify a cape or a superhero character? Like for example, a spring bone, but modify the behavior more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. With Motion Pilot now, that will help you do a lot of that sort of stuff. We don't have a physics engine, so to speak, in Cartoon Animator. But what we do have now is with Motion Pilot, we have a wave function, okay? So for instance, if you had a cape and it was attached to the back of a character's neck, you can add a wave function to it that will have it sort of move backwards and forwards like that. And then you have all your spring bones through the cape, which you have all your parameters on it that will decide how that moves with gravity and stiffness and flexibility. And then you work out how fast you want your wave to move, whether it's just in a smooth pattern or an erratic pattern. You can do that. So again, your answer is yes, but we don't have an actual physics system. But I'll tell you, in my opinion, you can fake it anyway. The good thing is you don't have to keyframe it all anymore. Back in Cartoon Animator 4, if you wanted to do a cape, I've got characters that are wearing a cape, if I wanted to keyframe it, if I wanted to animate it, I had to keyframe all that movement. Now you don't have to do that. You can just have it all automated, and it's fantastic. So answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a numerous Motion Pilot tutorials in our learning center as well. Check those out. I think we should probably do like another Cartoon Animator webinar based on those new features. I think we're supposed to, right?
Well, you'll be pleased to know that I just finished recording a new tutorial for Reillusion, all on Motion Pilot, which I filmed with my daughter Madison, and she's actually Motion Pilot to show how easy it is that anybody can do it, and that will come out later in the year.
Awesome. Yeah, Motion Pilot's epic. It's really, it's
really
awesome.
You know what? Honestly, I got to say, Motion Pilot is the most fun I've ever had with Cartoon Animator, because now instead of just animating, you're actually acting. You're putting these characters on screen and you become that character as it's walking around the screen. And everybody I've showed it to beams and smiles like a 3-year-old on Christmas. The excitement that adults get out of moving the little octopus around the screen and watching him, they instantly become that character. Motion Pilot is amazing. Look at that octopus go. Exactly.
All right, another question from Nehemiah. Can this software play MP4 files? You can import them, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, you can import MP4 files. You may, when you first do it, you may get an error if you don't have the correct codec files loaded. If you want to know what they are, just go to the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page and ask the question, and you'll get an answer instantly.
Awesome, yeah. I think Tanya has actually put in the chat the Facebook page a couple of times, but if you guys want, you can check through the chat history and find that. Yeah, it's a really good community I think we have there. Gary rules it with an iron fist.
Anybody has any question today, honestly, ask it in there, and I guarantee you have a question by this afternoon. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Okay, we got one from anonymous attendee here. What is the speed rhythm of the image frame per second?
I got no idea. I actually have no idea.
I mean, I think by default it's 30 frames a second, right?
Yes,
yeah, 30 frames per second. There's not a difference. I think 30 frames per second is the only export
yes, you're absolutely right,
option for FPS.
Yes, you're correct, because I've had people ask, can you do 24 frames a second? And I don't believe we can. Yes, I think you're correct. We're 30 frames a second.
Yeah, I think for the 2D software, it's only 30 frames per second. Yes. We can do it with other ones with iClone, but just not with Cartoon Animator at this time. So, mind
you, having said that, can I just say I've never had a need to change it. I've never, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've never looked at it and gone, oh, I wish I could change the frame rate. I'd just change the animation to suit the frame rate. Wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's scenarios where you could probably use it, but I haven't really
Yeah.
used 24 frames per second with Cartoon Animator. But that's just me again. There's way more creative people out there. So let's go to the next one. It's from Doug. Doug Wills. I already have Motion Live 2D for Cartoon Animator 4. Will it work with Cartoon Animator 5? Motion Live, I think, comes with Cartoon Animator 5.
I'm using it at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm actually experimenting with my new character Evan with Motion Live, and I'm going to tell you, it just it blows me away. It's so cool. I'm still trying to work out how I can implement into my stuff, but it's really good. It's very accurate now.
Yeah, you just have to, if you want to use like a separate hardware like Rococo Suit or an iPhone for facial capture, you need to purchase those separate profiles.
Absolutely.
So
and can I just say,
yeah.
like, and they're good. Don't get me wrong. I've got the perception neuron motion suit. I've got the Motion Live and all that sort of thing. But I enjoy animating rather than sort of doing that sort of thing. I like to get in there and just have the control of moving everything around.
Okay, a couple questions here from anonymous attendee. I'll probably put them in one question here. The first one is, what are the animation art norms and standards adapted for this project?
I don't know what
super
that
clear
means.
on that. Yeah, maybe you want to clear it up a little bit, anonymous.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's a fairly general question. The other one is, what are the animation art life cycle development process steps for making a cartoon project?
Animation art life cycle development process. Dude, I don't have an
That's a lot
animation
of words.
life cycle development process. You know what I do? I put the character on screen and then I animate it and I make it do what I want to do. That's my cycle. You know what? Honestly, I don't forward think anything. I go, I'm going to put a character on screen and I want it to do a monologue. I don't know what she's going to do when she's doing it. I drop the voice on it. Then I make the character act like you saw today, where I just get it to move around. Or I'll have a character walk on screen and then go, what are we going to do with it? And I'll make something up as I go. The best way I can describe my style of animation is I make it up as I go along. I don't have a life cycle development process at all.
Yeah, mine's kind of like trial and error.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. Trial and error. That's my process. Absolutely.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's, I think anyone who says that that's not the case is probably lying, because everyone goes through that trial and error process and nothing's perfect right off the bat. Question from Nehemiah again: is it possible to play a motion file in reverse?
That's a great question, because up until now, the answer was always no. But yes, now we can do it, but only with Motion Pilot. With Motion Pilot, you can take a character, you can put it on screen, you can drop a motion onto it in the blend motion box, and you can have your animation walk forward. But then if you want to, you can have it play in reverse. If we've got, let's go through all the answers, Kai, and if we've got time at the end, I can do just a quick 2-minute demo and show Nehemiah how we can do this, because it is actually something that's really cool that people have been asking for years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, can't you like right click on a motion clip now in version 5 and just click reverse? Is that
I don't know. We could try.
I know it's an option in 3D, but I thought they put it into
but it's awesome. The fact that you can have a character properly walk backwards now is amazing. And if we've got time at the end, if it's all right with Kyle, I'll show you. Otherwise, I'll show you in Cartoon Animator page.
Absolutely, yeah. And this question from anonymous is the same one as before, so we kind of needed a bit more like I mentioned, details. This was about the art fundamentals, principles, / etc. So I'll just skip by that one for now.
I noticed in there that he spoke about rigging. Anonymous attendee spoke about rigging. Again, if you go to the Reillusion YouTube channel and have a look for my webinar called How to Rig a G3 Actor for Cartoon Animator 5, that goes through a 2-hour webinar that shows you exactly how all these characters are rigged. So you'll get all your information there.
Okay, I was just looking over at the chat here. Don mentions that you cannot reverse a motion on the timeline, only with the Motion Pilot. So that's thanks for clearing that up, Don. I was kind of unsure, haven't actually tried that in Cartoon Animator, but yeah, okay, good to know. All right, question from Nicole. This is a long one. Does the face editor lock both eyes, etc., for example, by default? I think we showed that, right?
No,
Yeah,
not at all, Nicole, not at all. If you're talking about, okay,
when you move both eyes simultaneously, does it?
right, no, you can move them individually. So if I select that eyebrow, I can move just that eyebrow. If I select that eye, I can move just that eye. Nothing's locked. Nothing's locked. Nothing. You don't have to move anything together with anything else. When it comes to stuff like that, it's only if you have them both selected. So you can do that. And also, Nicole, just to let you know, the reason that I don't have the chat enabled when I'm doing my webinar is because I try to stay on track of my topic, because I set my webinar to be pretty much precisely an hour. And if I get distracted by the chat, I get off topic and we start going down the rabbit hole and we don't cover all the topics that we're doing. But I'm always happy to cover it either in the chat, or you can send me an email and I'll answer anything you got. But that's why we did
awesome. Yeah, so I kind of misread that a little bit, but yeah, I think Gary just demonstrated you can, they're not locked together. You can modify each one separately in various.
Now, anonymous attendee is back with more words I do not understand.
Whether the artistic and aesthetic rules, the rule of thirds, for example, perspective grids, etc., applied for making a project. I think there's a lot of interesting questions here from anonymous, but in terms of I know we know the rule of thirds, I know perspective grids, etc. But this is with
perspective grids, at least, like your Cartoon Animator uses Z-axis so that you have a depth of field. Like I showed you the fact here that Jane is standing in front of the background, so that when you go to your 3D view, there's your stage, we're sitting there, there's Jane, that you can move Jane around in the world on a perspective grid, so to speak, and the same with the background. But as far as rule of thirds, I don't know. A
rule of thirds is basically a cinematography concept when you split the screen into 3 separate sections, and generally you'll have things that are in focus are in a certain area, like on the lines of each. But
anonymous attendee, you're giving me way too much credit if you think that I think that far into what I do. I don't. I make silly pictures move. That's what I do. I don't get, look, honestly, guys, I don't get bogged down on the technical stuff. There's CGA pros out there. There's some fantastic guys out there like Chris Meyer and David Arundel that can tell you all the technical aspects of all this. I'm not your guy. I'm the creative one. I color in for a living and I make funny pictures move. That's all I do.
Fair enough. Another question from Nehemiah: is there an auto keyframe mode in this software? I think it's auto keyframe by default, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's auto keyframe by default. As soon as you move anything or make any sort of adjustment, you will get a keyframe on a timeline that's applicable to that part somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't think you can turn that off, because sometimes people just want to test things without adding the keyframe. But as far as I know, test it,
then you delete the keyframe. It's easy.
Yeah,
I'd hate to have the option to turn it on and off, because if I turn it off, I'd do like 40 minutes of keyframing only to realize none of it got saved. I'd hate that.
All right. Another question from Nehemiah: can lighting be controlled within the software? There's no lights to speak of in Cartoon Animator. No. But what you can do, Nehemiah, if you want to, utilize lighting in a 2D environment, export your project to After Effects if you have access to After Effects, because After Effects has all those lights and stuff that you can add in. And I've done that many times into After Effects. So that's an option for you. But
your man to speak to on that one is Chris Meyer White. He uses After Effects all the time. He can use it fast, and he is absolutely brilliant at it. And you'll see him on the Cartoon Animator Users Facebook page, because he runs the page.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen some of his stuff. Really excellent, and
brilliant.
An After Effects wizard. Not like myself. I'm like very basic. But
I tried After Effects. I was okay at hit film. I was pretty good at hit film, but the reason, the reason that I don't use post-production software is because my focus is just on using and teaching this software rather than other software. So that's why I don't use it. I try to get the best result out of just using Cartoon Animator and nothing else.
Cool. I think we had one question that anonymous attendee sent that might be useful for some people here. Mentions, did you add any add-ons or plugins or API libraries for making this animation project?
No.
Yeah, good answer. By the way, no plugins used here.
No, I didn't use any plugins. This is just my standard character, and it's a flat background. all of the tools that I used come with Cartoon Animator 5. There's no
Absolutely,
extras.
yeah. There was nothing additional used in this entire
Yeah.
webinar.
Can we read?
Tanya.
Can we read Tanya's message out aloud? Just everybody be quiet. Just listen to Tanya's. It seems like it's very important.
Tanya says, "Nailed it again."
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Tanya.
Hopefully, I put the right inflection on that message there.
Perfect.
Again. All right. Another anonymous question here. The newsletter recently showed a major upgrade to the facial motion live feature, but it appears to be only available in iClone. Yeah, that's called AccuFace.
That's amazing, by the way. That is,
yeah.
how amazing is that software?
Yeah, it's we're doing a lot of cool stuff with it for sure. AccuFace is the 3D basically motion capture, our proprietary one. You can check out the tutorials I've done on that. It's really cool.
Oh, it's amazing.
Highly recommend checking
You
it
know
out.
what?
Yeah.
I don't work with I don't work with iClone at all, but I watch all the tutorials, all the videos, because it just blows me away what it can do. It's phenomenal. How far it's come. Like I was here in the early days, 10 years ago. How far it's come is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of a good idea to check that stuff out too, because I mean, most of what happens in iClone, basically, a year or two later, you'll see it in Cartoon Animator.
Yeah,
I think for most of this stuff. So
iClone is always my wish list. It's like it's like your crystal ball into the future, where you watch it and go, "Ooh, we might get that one day."
All right. Question from Fred: is there a workflow document out there that mirrors your methodology?
Okay. Fred's a great guy. I work with Fred all the time. Fred, just to tell you, there's not a document out there that mirrors what I do. And the reason for that is because every single project that I start is different. No two projects are the same. So I find that the easiest thing to do is to show you how I use the tools. Then you can go and implement that into your own projects. If you can give me 3 different projects and make me do them 3 times, and I'm going to do them different every single time. It's a creative process. So I don't have a set step guide of A to Z on how to do things like that. No.
Yeah, I mean, we have the help documentation, but I don't know that there's like a specific. I think Mark has some courses where it's like laid out in documentation form.
Yep.
But aside from that, yeah, I can't really.
What I showed you here today is probably the best methodology, and that is don't try to do it all at once. Do it layer by layer. Start out, as I did, start out with the lip syncing and then go with the head block out and then go with the blinking. If you do it in the order in which I did it today, it'll make your animating a lot easier and give you a better result.
Absolutely. We'll go to the next one here from Heather Wild anyways. Can you make them look like your pet? And then
well, that's a drawing issue. If you can draw like that, yes. No, I mean, really, like if you're creating your own characters, you can create any character you want. You can do anything you want at all. So the answer is yes, but there's nothing within the software that's going to do that. You can't change the look of a character in the software. That comes down to the design of the character.
Mm-hmm. Good point. We'll go to the next one here from Shane anyways. Could you use these tips of character creation in the area of animated prop creation? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, props are actually easier. Props are vastly easier.
Yeah. Hi, Shane. Shane's another good guy. I work with Shane all the time too. And yeah, everything I've done here from the deform and all that, it all pretty much applies to props as well. Absolutely. And don't forget that you can, just because you're creating a human actor doesn't mean it has to be a human actor, okay? You can use the template of a human or even the 360 head, right? Where the 360 head, you think of it as being a human head. Doesn't have to be. It can be an object which you can then rotate in 3D space. And if you want a really good example of that, go to the marketplace, have a look at my UFO that I created. It's a UFO, but it's actually modeled off a 360 head. So it's a prop, but it works like a head. So yeah, you can do it. You can do that definitely.
Yeah, you can be really creative with that stuff for sure. Like Gary mentioned, it's really you can take props and import them in as faces and just utilize different kind of aspects of that tool that aren't available for the props. Exactly. It's all about your creativity. Okay, good question from Pierre here. Anyways, a question about full body animation. During dialogue, I try to shift the body's center of gravity to emphasize the dialogue. If I lock the feet, the knee joints often bend in weird ways. Is there a way to minimize this?
All right. Based on what, sorry, you're right.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Based on what Pierre said there, you saw in the animation that I did when I used the freeform deformation to bend and stretch Jane's body. That's what I would do there. If you want to just do inflections to emphasize the body shift so that as she's talking, she sort of moves up like that, instead of doing it by trying to transform the actual pivot points on the bones, just use your freeform deformation, use the lattice grid around the outside so that you can, like I did here, nice and quick, when you've got the lattice work there, if you want to just do an inflection on Jane's shoulders, grab those center bits and you can bring those up, even bringing the head down at the same time, just to make the parts of the body move that you want. So you can bring the hips up without ever affecting the feet placement. So yes, you can do that.
Isn't there an option in the edit motion layer tool to lock the direction of the knees or something like that? I think
you can lock the feet. I don't know.
IK or FK, there's like a.
Can you lock other parts? I thought you could only lock the hands and the feet.
So yeah, I mean, like in terms of like locking the feet, you lock the feet, but I think there's an option you can click where it's like it'll keep the direction of the knees in one direction or the other.
Yeah. See, it's not something that I've used. You're correct. There is something there. It's something to do with flipping or something like that. But it's not something that I've used. But yes, you're correct.
I may be confusing both the softwares again, but I definitely know it's there in iClone, so you can constrain the.
If I was gonna do it where I just wanted to shift the center of gravity, I would just nice and easy do it with your freeform deformation like that. The secret to freeform deformation is don't overuse it. If you overuse it and you end up with that, it looks ridiculous. But if you animate your character and she's just doing a short shrug and it's like that, or a little bend like that as she's talking, it looks much more natural.
Cool. A comment here from Nicole. We answered her mirror face editor question earlier, so thanks, Nicole. It was good question, and very useful for sure. Question from Peter Chachulski. Is it possible to disable showing the bones by default every time I click, for example, on the 2D motion key editor? That's a good question. I don't think there is.
Is it possible to disable showing them? I don't know if you can do it by default, but if I'm working with Jane here and I have the 2D motion key open, sorry, I've just got to move all the windows around. There's just so many windows everywhere now. If I move that around, then if I select bone here and it's got show bone, I can turn them off. Does that answer his question? So if I've got...
Yeah, but by default, I think he's asking.
Not by default.
Yeah.
But you can turn them off and on as you need it. If you keep that little display box open, you can, because like for instance, when I'm creating a new G360 head and all the bones are there, I always turn the bones off while I create the 360 head. Then I turn them back on. But yeah, you can't do it by default that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah, Peter, I'm the same way, to be honest. And I think.
Yeah, I got another idea for you.
For this question,
the other idea, Peter, is if you don't like the bones, you can always reduce the bone size down to 1, and they'll be so thin they might not even be noticeable, rather than having the bones thicker. That's another option. I do that all the time.
I think he's mentioning, because when I enter into that tool, the first thing I do is I turn off the bones, because I find it kind of annoying. Or like you said, I reduce the size of the bones or the opacity or whatnot.
I always keep my bones down to minimum thickness.
Yeah. I'm not sure I can't remember if there's a default way to do it though. So yeah, it's a good question though, Peter. It's a good comment. A question from David: is it worthwhile to use motion capture and then tweak it, or is it better to do everything manually instead for animating characters? I often feel like I'm fighting with the character rig when trying to use both purchased animations and hand keyframes.
Okay.
What's your comment on that?
There's so many different ways that we can animate characters now, right? You've got your motion capture, you've got keyframing, you've got motion pilot, and you've got pre-made motions. To be perfectly honest, I find that when you're starting out with this software, the best thing to use is pre-made motions, because they're polished, they're professional, they're smooth, you can link them together, you can edit them, you can do a lot of great stuff with it. Beyond that, I stopped using motions with the exception of a walk cycle quite some time ago, because I enjoy the process of animating, and I like to get my characters to move manually. I've played with mocap. I didn't use it a lot simply because, I mean, there is an expense involved naturally, but the setup is quite laborious. And then you've got to try and still tweak all your animations. It depends what you're more comfortable with. I guess if you were doing, like, say you're doing like a 5-minute monologue and the character was just sitting in a chair talking, maybe then mocap would be really handy, that you could do all your motions and stuff. But I don't work like that. I do a lot shorter clips. So for me, I enjoy just doing the keyframing.
Yeah, I think Gary has some good comments there for sure. You know, and like you mentioned, the motion capture for the body anyways, it is a pretty big investment. Even the lower level ones, basic ones are, you know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So yeah, that's if you're using Cartoon Animator, which is like $70, it might be a little bit of an investment for you, a little bit of a jump.
And can I just say, the only thing I ever wanted in the world was a motion capture suit, right? That's all I ever wanted. I finally got myself this lovely big space to use it. I got myself the motion capture suit. I don't use it. I don't.
Which one did you get?
The Perception Neuron. And
okay, gotcha.
And don't get me wrong, the results were superb. You could stand here in the suit and move around, and that character on screen would follow you precisely, and the results are amazing. They really are. But I can't help but feel that motion capture is still a little bit more in the 3D realm than the 2D realm.
Well, the suits make your ass look great. I think.
Oh, really? I'm going to go buy one.
Yeah. It just, you know, conforms, shapes your glutes. I'll just wear it out to dinner. All right, we'll go to the next one here. Another anonymous question anyways. Can you please share the link for the tutorial from the previous session that you referred to it earlier in the Q&A?
He's referring to the how to rig your G3 actors for Cartoon Animator. It's on the Reallusion website. If I tell you what, if you go to the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page and ask for it, if you can't find it, I'll have it to you by tomorrow.
Yeah, it's it takes, you know, a couple minutes to find it, and the Learning Center as well. Yeah. Okay, Anuj asks a good question. Do you guys have any instructors from India for Hindi speaking audiences? Oh man, I don't know. I know in our global training center, I've mentioned it a couple times already, we do have certified trainers listed there. I can't remember if there's any from India.
Not that I've ever come across. I haven't come across any.
Let me just double check here really quick. This will take 2 seconds. Global Training Network and certified trainers. You got Netherlands, Taiwan. Oh, there's one guy from India, and it says he does Hindi and Telugu and Tamil. That's Mohammed Khalik. So you can contact here. Also another guy, Arvind Kumar Gupta. So a couple of guys from India, right on the first page.
Oh, that's good.
I'll throw this link into the chat window for you guys, so you can, if you wanted to find a certified trainer somewhere in the world, you can check out this link here.
Can I throw myself into the ring there as well, because I'm also doing private coaching now?
I think you're on there, as far as I know.
Oh, good.
Probably.
I don't know if I am.
Yeah, you're right up there.
Oh,
You're number one, buddy.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, you are. You're top.
But funny, I could speak in Hindi. I could get a larger role.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Question from so I put the link in the chat window just so you guys have it, for the Global Training Center certified trainers. A question from Craig Eccles. I'm starting a large project and my biggest issue is getting enough backgrounds that all match. Locations, houses, etc., etc. I'm considering using live video as the backgrounds instead of an animated 2D ones. What is the best workflow to get this to work? And are there any tutorials regarding this?
Okay, it's easy enough to drop in it's easy enough to drop in a video as a background. You can just drop it in as an MP4. The biggest problem that you're going to have is you're not going to have any layering on it. At least by using like a PSD file or something like that, you can layer all your backgrounds. But if that's not important to you, like I've got the background with Jane Danger here, that's just a flat JPEG, right? I happen to hit it with a blur filter to make it look like it was out of focus, but you can easily drop in an MP3 file, an MP4 file, say of the beach or something like that, with all the waves rolling in, and then have your characters walking down the beach. Yes, you can do that.
Yeah,
you don't
and
need a tutorial on it. You just drop it in.
Yeah, the advantage of working doing that in a 2D project is it's a lot easier if you are using videos to navigate that and to get in the right positioning, because you don't have to worry too much about
I've done it. I've done it on a couple of occasions. It looks really good. You get that whole Roger Rabbit feel where you've got the 2D character in with the live action, and if you you can still layer up your backgrounds and stuff. You could have, provided your camera was static, you could have an animated background, like a live video background, and then cut out some of the layers so that your characters can walk behind it and that. I've got a couple of demos on my YouTube channel where I did that. Looks really good.
Yeah, I think one of the top things for that is you have to be very familiar with perspectives. Like some people just don't have the depth perception for perspectives, and other people do.
Lighting is always an issue with that. You need plenty of post-production software, software.
Yeah, definitely. Another question from Anonymous. I'll share the link for the
available.
Okay.
If you go to the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page, I'll get that for you, no problem.
Right on. So Dirham, I think this is a question from about we're getting to the questions that are from 25 minutes ago now.
That's okay. No, we answered this one for him as well.
Yeah, we got the layer illustrator one. I think that was the very first question.
That's in the tutorial that I wrote. Yep.
Shoba asks, how many camera angles are there to work with?
Just the one.
Just the one, yeah. It's a 2D camera angle.
You know what? It's not fair to say just the one, actually. There's only the one camera angle, but the camera angle very much depends on your background art. So if you've got a background where it's drawn so that you'll look, and I've got backgrounds like this in my collection for sale, right? I've got backgrounds where you're standing at street level and you're looking up at the buildings, so that's a different camera angle. Or you might be standing on the rooftop looking at the ground, that's a different camera angle. But ultimately, it's all just a flat image. It's 2D, so it's a flat image. It's not like 3D.
Yeah, and I mean, I do understand that there's sometimes a need for multiple cameras for sure to be set up. But generally, like Gary mentioned, when you're working with 2D, generally every aspect, every object in your scene, like backgrounds or characters or whatever, are tilted or whatever perspective modified to face one direction. So if you're going to have like, multiple cameras, it's not really super useful, just because you'd have to switch everything back to
2D just doesn't have multiple cameras. You can go back like anywhere in history. It doesn't have multiple cameras. It's all one camera shot. It's the artwork itself which makes it look like a different camera shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Coolio. Let's go to the next one from Peter again. Peter Chachowski. Second question. When I'm in edit mode and I click Control S, then the window settings disappear, which again is not really corrective. Edit mode and click Control S.
Don't do it. I'm joking. I've never done it. I've never hit Control S. So what does that do? It makes window settings disappear.
Well, it says when you're in edit mode. So I've never done it in edit modes. I mean, Control S saves your project, but
yeah, I'm old school again. I don't use hotkeys and speed things up. I do everything manually. Sorry, Pete. Can't help you on that one.
Okay, next question is from Emmy Okoye. When are you going to teach us how to use pre-made expressions, or what can you recommend to buy that will speed up my work?
Well, there are no, you can't. With pre-made expressions, you have to make them yourself. You have to look with a character that has a G360 head set up properly. When you go into the face detail settings, there is a select, like if I've got my character selected like that, and I open this and I go to, I'll move the screen, I can't see it. And I go into templates, I can select on these different expressions and things like that. So they're all preset by the software, but I never use them. I never ever use them, because using the transform and deform key, you can create all your own expressions. It's way better to do that. It's not something you can buy. It's something that you have to learn how to do.
Well, I mean, you can purchase like expressions and stuff in the content store. I was
expressions?
I'm pretty sure you can, right? I mean, I've seen it. Really? Okay, you probably know better than I do in the 2D stuff.
No, look, I'm sure you can in 3D, but I've never seen a pack in 2D for expressions. I've never seen that. I'm not saying it
This
doesn't
one-
exist, because there's thousands of things in there, but it's just not something I've ever come across.
So I just quickly looked at this one called Social Emoticons 2. I believe this one has it does have some facial expression. Again, to utilize these, you would have to be using the default facial setup that is with your Cartoon Animator characters.
Okay.
So you, I'll throw this one into the chat for you guys if you want to take a look at this. So it has stuff like this.
When we do these, every time we do a webinar and everybody comes here because they go, oh, you know all about Cartoon Animator. That's what I said at the start. I still learn stuff every day.
All right, there we go. That's the one. I'm not sure if that's a new one. I haven't really seen it before though, but pretty cool. So check that in the chat window there for Emmy. For that, what are called performs. So performs are a combination of both body and facial animation, and there's a whole bunch of them there, which is pretty cool.
I've only, you know, it's funny you say that. I've only just recently been thinking about starting to experiment more with performs. I've never really done it before, but I was thinking about having a look at it.
Yeah, $69. Nice.
Okay, I'm gonna have a look at it when it's finished.
All right. Next one from Steve Couch. What's the largest screen resolution you can export? 4K, I believe. It's a little bit bigger than 4K, it looks like.
Here we go. Viewport resolution 8192 by 8192.
Yeah, it's that Ultra HD. I don't know.
I don't know. And if I go to export, if I was going to export this project as a video, and here are my options, and
4K is the biggest as far as I can see there. Yeah.
Yep. There we go.
Question
Having said
answered.
that, like Chris Meyer White produces stuff that is designed for, you know, actual publication and stuff like that, and he always works in 4K. I don't. I just work in 1920 by 1080 because my stuff's just for YouTube.
Julio. All right. I think there's some things Don posted in the chat that are additional emotion packs and body language, etc. I've never seen those before, but it looks like you have to maybe search for them yourself. Let's go to the question. Next question from Donald. Anyways, Donald Poirier. I loved your presentation, Gary. Do you have a course plan or step-by-step workflow shortlist for us beginners?
The only thing, look, two best things I can offer you there. You got like either free or paid, right? There's all the resources that I mentioned at the start, okay? And then you go to the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page, and I'm telling you, that is the best free resource you're going to get because we've got so many pros in there. But if ever you're interested, I do also do private coaching sessions, which you can send me an email for. I'm happy to talk to you about out of here. But the good thing about that is my classes are set for your skill level. So if you've just started, we can start at the absolute basics. Or if you've been using it for years, we can start with the more complicated stuff. Yeah, I don't want to take up time talking about myself, but send me an email.
Private sessions.
Yes, yeah. I even wear clothes. It's okay.
He puts on the robe and the disco lights. Next question's from Simona. I guess the cartoon character is a vector graph.
Yeah, it's basically vector graphic. Yes.
Does a pixel cartoon graphic have the same sharp quality?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you can take that.
If this was a PNG based character and you were looking at it like that, then yes, it would look just as sharp. The problem is if we zoomed in like this, you'll notice here that you're going to get a little panel come up that says that it's vectorized. It turns this back into a nice sharp image. If that was a PNG, that's not going to happen. It's going to become pixelated and blurred. So if you're working with PNG, you're better off to make sure your figures are either really, really large, which is going to make your file size larger, or you put them on the screen at a size that you don't need to zoom them.
I think that's a pretty definitive answer there. Hopefully that answered your question. We'll go to the next one from Doug. Another question from Doug Wills. For my Motion Live question earlier, maybe I should have asked if the webcam profile for Cartoon Animator 4 will work with 5. Oh man, that's a good question.
Can I make a suggestion here for Doug? Because I don't want to see Doug spend money to find out that I've given him information that's wrong. Doug, why don't you send me an email to garypye@reallusion.com, which is GARYPYE@reallusion.com, or post that same question on the Cartoon Animator users Facebook group, and I will see it within the next 24 hours and I'll respond. What I'll do is I will ask my guys at Reillusion, the definitive answer to your question so that I'm not guessing at all. We'll get you an actual answer so you know when you buy. How's that?
I'll say I think that you would need to purchase the profile again with 5. I'm like fairly sure, but you know, I mean, at least what you can do is you can purchase the software and then try if the old profile still shows up. I'm very on the fence about that, so I'm not really sure.
That's why I think
I should have that answer, but
I'd rather get him a definitive answer rather than not be 100% sure. So
yeah, good point. Yeah. Oh, David mentions you do have to pay twice, which sucks. Yeah, it does suck, but that's I mean, it's a new profile for a new version, so
exactly
yeah.
right.
I would always assume the worst.
And don't forget, I get that it sucks. I know a lot of people will say that, but also you're not forced to upgrade. Okay, it's if you choose to upgrade, then you got to pay for what you want. Can't be helped. We all have to do it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think we're one of the last companies out there that doesn't have a subscription model, so you're not paying monthly and stuff. You can kind of just use it whenever you want, and you know.
That's what I love. You buy what you need. You're not stuck paying for what you're not going to use, right? If this software was like $2,000 and I wasn't going to use 60% of it, then I'd have something to complain about. But if I'm buying the software at the moment for like $74, which is amazing for what you're getting in Cartoon Animator 5. But if I'm buying it for $74 and then I go, you know what? There's something else I want. Well, then you can pay for it as an add-on. I actually really like add-ons because I'm not stuck paying for what I don't want.
Yeah, I think there's Craig also here confirms that. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's the thing, and that's kind of the balance of, you know, what we've chosen as a pricing model. So I honestly just hate subscription stuff. I mean, every month is just more and more, and then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, this month it's like, you know, 20% increase, and you're like, well, you know,
and you go, oh, it's only $15 a month, but then you've got 20 of them. And you realize how much it takes up. And I just got rid of a whole bunch of mine, actually.
Yeah. I mean, because sometimes you just barely even use them, right? So
exactly.
All right. Another question from Nehemiah. Is there a slow motion function in the software?
Well, no, because you just span out your keyframes to make things go slower.
There's various ways.
Yeah. Running and I wanted it to run slower, you just span out your keyframes, or if it's a pre-made motion, you can just drag it out to make it move slower. So that's easy enough.
All right. A good question from Aaron here. Newbie question. How do I know if I have Pro or Pipeline? So right now we don't have Pro and Pipeline versions. We had it in I think for 4 was the last one, but in version 5, it's all the same features. Yep. So there's no Pro version, there's no Pipeline version. So you'll just have the one version, because that was causing like hella confusion before for people, and they're like, oh, what do I get, what do I don't get? And so we're just like, you know,
makes it easier.
Screw this, or like, yeah, make it more simple for everyone. All right, Pete Johnson asks, how long will the AccuFace intro price be going on? Oh man, Pete, I'm not sure. I'm not in that department, but normally they go for about a month. If you miss out on the discount, don't blame me. But I think it started a couple of weeks ago, so probably another couple of weeks would be my guess. But again, don't crucify me if it goes off of the sale before then. But yeah, generally a month that would be my recommendation. Anonymous attendee, what secret plans do you have for Cartoon Animator 6?
Well,
man, I don't know.
Well, I can't tell you what's ahead for Cartoon Animator 6. But what I can say without actually saying anything and then having the big black car pull up the front and stuff me in the trunk and drive me away is that there is an update coming for Cartoon Animator 5 very shortly that's going to add some new stuff, which I've just seen in the last couple of days. And it's very, very cool. And you're not going to have to wait too long for it. But I can't tell you what it is or I get into trouble. That's pretty cool.
Oh, Gary, you tease.
It's pretty cool, I'm telling you. As I said, like they just keep making everything easier, faster, and more fun. That's what they're focusing on. The next one does it again. It's very good.
Right on. I guess thank you from Pierre Fontaine. That's a clever workaround. Cool. Thanks, Pierre.
Glad we helped.
Peter is a very prolific questionee here.
By the way, can I just say, just to speed up time, I read Pete's message here while you were just dealing with the last one. What I would do, Pete, is to just copy and paste exactly what you've got there and put it on the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page, because the person that you need to speak to there is Chris Meyer White. He's the guy who's the After Effects specialist. I don't use After Effects at all, so I can't help you. But what you're saying is the way that it works with all the individual layers. Yes, that is the way it works. But Chris is the man to speak to. He can answer that. Put that on there. I'll make sure that he gets to it for you.
Yeah, Peter, I think it's just kind of maybe an issue with the import folders being in the wrong place or something. But
question.
Yeah, maybe just like follow Gary's suggestion there.
Yeah, no, I can help with that.
All right. Anonymous asks, a while back, there was concern about using the new Affinity software upgrade. Does Affinity Designer 2 and Photo 2 work okay now? I'm not sure. I haven't. Oh man, that's a good question. I can't answer that definitively because I don't use that pipeline myself.
Affinity Designer either.
Give it a shot. I can't guarantee.
Affinity Designer, I just don't use it.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I can't really answer that definitively, but if someone else uses Affinity Designer 2, then they can maybe comment in the chat. But okay, DRM asks, are the dashes in the map of the promo made with Cartoon Animator? No, I don't think so. That would be probably
they'd be imported.
Yeah.
They'd be made externally and then imported as a prop, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been generated
because we don't have any illustration abilities in Cartoon Animator. We don't have a drawing part of the program, so they have to be imported.
Yeah, good answer there. So question from George here. Gary, what is your go-to software for assembling multiple project files into one file, such as your blowfly animation?
Okay, what I do is I create all of my projects, all of my individual shots in Cartoon Animator, save them all as individual project files, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then export them all as an MP4. Then I load all of those MP4s into my editing software, which for me just happens to be Pinnacle. And the reason that I work with Pinnacle is because I've been with it since version 1, 100 years ago, and I can work fast in there and I know it, and I'm up to about version 21. And then I edit it all in there and I do all of my sound effects and music in there. The only thing that I do in Cartoon Animator is voices.
Awesome. All right, we got a few more questions left and we're pretty much right on time for the hour. So we'll, question from Pete. Can the full animation be exported and used on any character of similar setup, like an iClone? Yeah, absolutely. So if you're Peter, Pete, I guess, if you have the animation saved and the other character has the same rig, the same setup, then you can easily transfer from one to the next.
Yeah, and you can use collect clip, where you can collect the clip, or perform motions, as Kai said earlier. You can use those and then you can transfer them to other actors.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. David, good to see you, David. Would Realision be interested in having me do a webinar on acting and animators? David, you can contact our team about that. Maybe bring a proposal in and we can take a look at that for sure. There's a whole team that kind of dictates the webinar stuff.
Can I just say too, because I know David Fleeton, he's a really good guy. Can I also say, David, do what Kai said, and I'll tell you why. Take your idea to them, because it is a company that will listen to new ideas. And I know that because that's why I am where I am. Okay, I went to them with my ideas and went, how about we do this? How about we do that? And now this is what I do. So yeah, if your idea is good and it's useful and you can do it properly, they will take ideas on board. So do that.
Yeah, good suggestion. I think that I totally agree. We're always open to new hosts and everything. We have guests all the time. So cool. Yeah. All right, one final one from Nehemiah. What is the Black Friday price of Cartoon Animator 5.2? I think it was $74 or something. We saw
74 or 79, I think it was. 74, yeah. I think you're right, 74. And I'll tell you, Nehemiah, I'll tell you now, honestly, just buy it. Trust me, just buy it, because it's brilliant. That's the best way to wrap up this webinar. Nehemiah's question is the best one to wrap up this whole webinar. Just go and buy it in the Black Friday sales. You will not be sorry. This software is really cool.
Just do it, right?
Just do it. Yeah, truly. Just do it. You won't be sorry, I promise.
All right, awesome. I want to send out a awesome thank you to everyone for being with us today, and thanks again, Gary, for hosting an awesome webinar. Super comprehensive. You won't get better. You won't get better than that in terms of facial animation tips. So thanks again.
Fun as always.
And especially with the Q&A, right? That's your favorite
I love
part.
it. I love the Q&A. I kid you not. I look at the time and we got to 12:30 and I'm looking at it going, oh, I've only got a half an hour to go. I could honestly just stay on here and do Q&A all day, because that's the fastest way to learn, right? People just ask a question and you give them an answer straight away. But just really, really quick, guys, the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page. I know I keep banging on about it, but the reason is because it works exactly the way Q&A works here. You ask a question, you get an answer almost instantly. Get on there, ask anything you've got. It's the fastest way you're going to get a response to anything you want to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of people with a lot of time over there. I think they're all like millionaires, just, like.
Oh, we are. We're all just millionaires.
Sitting there on the beach like a Cartoon Animator. Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Oh, we have. Now, thank you, Kai. I had a good afternoon.
Awesome. And just a reminder to everyone, fill out that survey. We're going to send out to you 10% discount for the content store. Everything's on YouTube. We'll send you the link. And I think that pretty much covers it all.
Yep.
So adios. Thanks, Gary.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
See you in the next one, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.